Hey guys, nice day here in D.C. Faith Nation is right around the corner, but here is a sneak peek. Vice President Mike Pence walked out of an NFL game after players took a knee during the national anthem. I'll break down the details live from the White House. David Brody got a one-on-one interview with Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Him and Jenna will discuss on set. North Korea, immigration reform, and faith are some of the topics we plan to tackle. Glad you're here. Let's get the conversation rolling as Faith Nation starts now.
Well, hello, and happy Wednesday, Faith Nation fans. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday. David, we have a pretty big show this week, a big mover and shaker.
Yeah, there's an Attorney General. He's Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, we should Google it.
Okay.
And he's the Attorney General.
Yeah.
Sorry, Eric Holder. But anyhow, sorry, I went there already early. But yeah, we did a one-on-one with him, and it was interesting. We'll get more into this later, Jen. I know you and I both have some analysis to come out of that. But it was interesting how we talked about getting back to basically a traditional Judeo-Christian framework in this country. I know that's going to make liberals go a bit bonkers, but liberals, get ready, buckle up, because you're going to hear it here in a little bit.
Oh yeah, you'll hear some of those buzzwords that might make them go a little bit crazy.
Buzzwords.
We'll see. But in the meantime, we also have Ben Kennedy. He is live at the White House with a preview of what we're going to be talking about. Hey, Ben.
Well, Ben,
right, well,
where did he go?
I don't know. Technical difficulties, I guess.
Wouldn't be the first time. I don't mean on this show. No,
Yeah.
not on this show. But
Yeah.
Look, technical difficulties, it happens.
It's life.
It is life,
right?
but I know he's going to be talking about the national anthem controversy.
Yeah, I know everybody out there has been talking about that. One of the most trending topics on social media, you know, the NFL and the president weighing in, Roger Goodell of the NFL also weighing in now, so I think Ben is going to be live at the White House if we can get him a little bit later. But should we talk about Sessions?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Jeff Sessions, and Ben, you know, we'll get back to you whenever you, hopefully he's not been, well, I was going to say hopefully he's not been raptured, though. Maybe we hope he's been raptured, but that's not good news.
I don't know. We are living in some crazy times, right?
Yes.
Right?
I like the way you brought it in.
Right, that's bad news for us.
Bad news for us. Not good if the raptures happen and we're still hosting Faith Nation. Okay, Jeff Sessions, yes, we were both there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of neat. Eric Rosales, our national security correspondent, with us as well. It was a great interview because I did the interview and I'm like, it was such a great interview.
If I must say so myself.
Let me tell you how great the interview was. But we'd love to get your comments. We're going to be actually on Facebook Live with all y'all as this interview is going on. So let's exchange some comments. We've got Amber C. Strong in the social seat or whatever it's called, and she'll be monitoring as well. She'll be with us in a little bit. But here is the interview with the Attorney General talking about a myriad of different issues. Have a look. Attorney General Sessions, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Good to see you again, by the way.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Hey, I want to ask you about the job.
And by the way, congratulations on your program.
Well, thank you.
On good work you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. Let me ask you quick about how you're enjoying this job to begin with, because I know it's a dream job for you. I understand. So tell me about that, and tell me about how your faith, because I know faith is very important to you, how that plays into your worldview and how you see this Department of Justice.
Well, it's a fabulous job, and every day we do things that I feel like make decisions that take us in the right direction. First, it's an important principle for all of us, religious people and non-religious people, that we have an orderly, lawful society. If you don't have that, nobody's liberties are protected, and we are determined to work in that regard. And I think we've had a slide over quite a number of years in which courts and advocates and politicians have disrespected the primacy of law, and that has long-term damaging effects for the country, and we're trying to get us back on the traditional view that protects us all in the long run.
Do liberals and progressives need to not be so concerned when you use the word traditional view? They get a little out of sorts when you use like a word like traditional.
Absolutely. I think they are too sensitive to that sometimes. I don't mind saying it at all. It's this umbrella of law and the Constitution that protects us. One professor said, if you respect the Constitution, you will apply its principles even if you disagree with them. Otherwise, you get to the point where nothing is firm. There's no wall of protection for anyone, whether they're liberal or conservative, secular or religious.
Religious liberty guidance that the DOJ did last week. Is it the Department of Justice's view that cake bakers that we've heard so much, these Christian cake bakers, is it the view of the Department of Justice from a guidance perspective, not law, I understand law is different, that they have a right, if you will, to not sell a cake to someone if they're having a gay wedding? Is that what the Department of Justice is saying as it relates to the guidance that they put out?
Well, what I would say to you now, while the matter's in litigation, but I would just say to you that too often we have ignored what the Constitution actually says. It says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So the question is, the cake baker has more than just a personal view here. He has a religious view, and he feels that he is not being able to freely exercise his religion by being required to participate in a ceremony in some fashion that he does not believe in. So we think that right is a fundamental right and ought to be respected as we work through this process.
People of faith are very happy, I'm sure there's a better word for it than happy, but very happy with what the DOJ is doing on this issue, obviously the Trump administration doing on this. What about the critics who say this is licensed to discriminate? You've heard the charge. What's the reaction to something like that? It's
not a license to discriminate. It's a respect for persons' integrity and their own personal beliefs. And someone can make a cake. It's not the only one person in the world can make a cake. But I would say the President Trump did an executive order that called on us to state some principles about how we would conduct ourselves, and the government should conduct itself with proper respect for religious freedom. And that's what we've done. It was general, did not go case specific, dealing with any specific case, but it's a general principles. It also sets a tone and a direction and a guidance for every one of these government agencies. Some of them, I think, in years past, in recent years, have gone too far in constricting free exercise of religion. So I think it will give guidance to the Trump administration all the way down to the lowest department and agency.
Let me switch gears. This whole NFL, the Constitution plays a part in this, because there's a lot of folks, and I have a 15-year-old daughter, and here's the word on the street in high school. A lot of these high school kids go, well, these NFL players, they have a constitutional right to do what they're doing. It's not that simple, and I'm curious if you could kind of explain it, if you will, dumb it down for folks that really aren't paying attention maybe to this issue overall.
Well, the federal government is doing nothing to punish people who chose not to stand when the national anthem was played and put their hands over their heart. The government isn't oppressing them in any way, and they've been free to do so. They have, but they have to stand before the public. And are they free never to be criticized for not respecting the national anthem, which is a non-political thing? If you don't like Donald Trump, if you don't like Hillary Clinton, should you, as a matter of propriety, not stand when the national anthem is played, which has nothing to do with any of that? It's a respect for the nation, not individual politics and so forth. So I think the president is correct to say you may have a right to do this law under the Constitution, but it's not the right thing to do. It's not good that you disrespect our nation. We should first respect our nation and then battle out our differences between us in the lawful way that we're allowed to do.
A couple last questions. You had you and President Trump, and the media loves to just dissect, put you and President Trump on the Dr. Phil couch. I get it. You want to you're a straight shooter. You want to set the record straight about your relationship with the president and all of the stuff that's been said in the media, because they have a point of view, and they are going to go with a narrative, and a lot of times it's a lazy narrative, and I thought I'd give you the chance to respond to all of
Well,
that.
the president's a strong leader, and he's accomplishing things nobody thought was possible. I am so proud of what's happening. I'm so proud to be able to have this great job of Attorney General and to be able to advance the principles that the president talked about, and he allowing me to advance those every day, and that's what's so important. But he's got his own views. He speaks clearly. If he's irritated about something, he says it, and I respect that. But I got to tell you, in many ways, we're doing things here day after day that I think if the American people really saw what we were doing, they would feel like we're putting this country back on a lawful path, a constitutional path, a path that respects religious faith and other principles that are important to our country. And I thank the president for the opportunity to lead that effort.
So when you say things in this country, let me ask you about religious liberty. This is the teeth in that executive order, if you will, because I remember in that executive order on religious liberty, they said he said the Department of Justice will issue guidelines, and here we are. So is this really the teeth of what can be done at the federal level?
Well, it's a statement, a reaffirmation, I think, of what the country has felt for centuries about the right of people to exercise their religion. Madison and Jefferson made clear this was one of the pre-existing rights. The right to worship is a pre-existing right. The state has no power whatsoever to dictate to the American citizen how they should feel or how they should worship. That should be respected. And to have the government dictate it is really weird, because the only thing that counts really is your personal relationship with the Lord, and the state shouldn't try to get in between it.
Yeah, I know you can go on forever on this question. It's my last, or one of my last. Two more left. DACA. You went out, you talked about DACA, you had that news conference. The president then, we heard all this talk about cutting a deal with Nancy, or Chuck and Nancy. What do you make of what might happen here with DACA as it relates to the legislation that could come forward at some point?
Well, the order of the Obama administration has been found essentially been found to be flawed. He had no power to wipe out whole sections of the United States law, and so we had to get that straight. The president does have sympathy for young people who may have been brought here at an early age and have gotten into no trouble, and we have to wrestle with what to do about that. But to give an amnesty, to give a lawful status to a group of people and do nothing to fix the problem in the future is unacceptable. So the president is exactly right about this. What we need to do is to restore a lawful system of immigration, a system that serves the national interest, one that's consistently applied fairly to everybody who applies to come to America. We admit 1.1 million every year to the United States, to lawful permanent residents. And so I would just say that the president is exactly right. Let's end this lawlessness. Let's create a system that will serve us well in the future, that's moral and decent and fair and just. That's what we should be doing.
My last question, just to wrap it up, how I started. How has your faith gotten you through some of the tough times in this job? Any job's tough, but how's your faith, have you relied on your faith in this job especially?
Well, I got to tell you, there have been days in which my faith has meant a tremendous amount to me, and how people without it get by, I don't know. But I've had such good support from friends and who are praying for me, and I feel that, and I know they're telling the truth. Also, you have to ask yourself, you're just a servant. Right. You don't have to have the job. You don't have to, but you do have to do your best every day, and the Lord will take care of you in the end if you try to do the right thing every day. And none of us are perfect. We make mistakes, but I do my best. And I think that a faith component gives you a certain perspective and strength that otherwise you just wouldn't have.
Such a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. That was great. Jeff Sessions. By the way, when I shook his hand, I had one of those buzzers that went off. And no, I did not have one of those buzzers. But real quick, I know we got to move. But what he said about faith at the end, really, really important. How do people get through life without, let's face it, Jesus? Good question. So.
Great question. All right, Amber, what are people saying?
A lot of people weighing in, a lot of love for Jeff Sessions just overall, and some of the topics that you guys hit on for the interview in general, and even love for you, Brody, so look at that.
Please, can we cue that
Love
up?
for you,
Sean,
Brody.
we have that?
Are they commenting on the pocket square? Just
No,
oh,
Pocket
okay.
Square didn't make it, but love for you, Brody.
Thank you. Well, let's keep talking about that.
All right, well, we have a lot to talk about. The NFL. Whew. Yeah, it's in the news. So we're going to talk about that. Take a quick break and be right back.
Phew. How do you spell?
Israel and the Middle East, center of the world for thousands of years, and still creating headlines that reach back to the Bible. Hosted by award-winning correspondent Chris Mitchell, Jerusalem Dateline brings a Christian perspective to events that literally change history. Whether it's the front lines or underground, Jerusalem Dateline is your window to Israel, Jerusalem, and the Middle East. Contact us at the address on your screen.
NFL continues to make headlines. Of course, you probably saw this. The president, vice president, walking out of the Colts game on Sunday because some NFL players, the 49ers, knelt. And some people, throwing a red flag at him and the other side as well.
Well, absolutely. And so this controversy is not going away anytime soon, Jenna, and that is exactly why Roger Goodell of the NFL made some news today for sure.
He did. Ben Kennedy is live at the White House with the latest. Hey, Ben.
Hey, good afternoon, David and Jenna. We're talking about that news by Roger Goodell. He is now siding with the president. I'll share more on that in just a bit. But as you guys were just mentioning, Vice President Mike Pence's move to walk out of an NFL game after players took a knee during the national anthem is no doubt drawing controversy. Critics are calling this a PR stunt, political grandstanding. I'll have what the White House has to say in about a minute or two, but I spoke with NFL analyst with Fox Sports' Mark Schlereth that said players kneeling during the national anthem are not disrespecting the flag, country, or military, but it's about drawing awareness to issues like social injustice.
To me, is disrespectful to the flag is that we don't care for one another, that we don't love one another, that we don't try to understand one another, that we don't have legitimate conversations with one another and try to solve some of the issues that this country has. And so that to me is the disrespectful thing. And, I hear people talk about, don't bring politics into the football and you shouldn't kneel and all that stuff. But, what's good for the goose is good for the gander too. Then don't come to the game and walk out because some of the guys sat or kneeled for the national anthem. That you're making it about politics, and I just don't buy that narrative.
I was in the press briefing on Tuesday, and yes, the White House did have something to say about this, so take a look. Here is Sarah Huckabee Sanders, press secretary.
I think it's appropriate. The vice president was invited and he attended that game. And I think it's always appropriate for the leaders of our country to stand up for the national anthem, to stand up for our flag, and to stand up for the men and women who fought and died for it. While the NFL may have given up its tax-exempt status a few years ago, it's been well documented that billions of taxpayer dollars continue to subsidize the construction and renovation of professional sports stadiums. If this industry is going to use money from American taxpayers to build the very fields they play on, is it really too much to ask that they show respect for the American flag at the beginning of the game?
It is clear the fans are just not happy. Ratings are down. This has become a bit of a PR nightmare for the NFL. David, Jenna?
Yeah, so Ben, what's next? I mean, what's the NFL going to do here?
Well, it turns out the commissioner of the NFL is now siding with the president. Roger Goodell says, yes, players should stand during the national anthem. In fact, President Trump took to Twitter this morning. Here is what he had to say. It is about time that Roger Goodell of the NFL is finally demanding that all players stand for our great national anthem. Respect the country. Now, team owners plan to discuss this, pick up the topic in their meetings next week. It is there. They could make it mandatory for players to stand for the national anthem. And if they don't, they could face fines or possible draft pick penalties. David, Jenna?
All right, Ben Kennedy live for us at the White House. Thank you, Ben. this issue picking up a ton of traction.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Amber, what are people saying online?
So we wrote this story as soon as it happened on Sunday, and we posted it, and immediately the comments went through the roof.
I bet.
The reactions went through the roof. People taking a stance on both sides. And when I say this story, I mean the story of Vice President Pence departing the Colts game early. A couple of reactions that we have for you here. This one is from Dwayne. Dwayne writes in and says, "Why would you waste time going to a game knowing the players are going to kneel so you can make a scene and walk out? Again, just like his boss, nothing but a show." And I think the critics have said, a lot of critics have said, these are the 49ers. They kind of led the movement of kneeling. Colin Kaepernick was a 49er. So did the vice president not know that they were going to leave, that they were going to kneel?
Right, could they not anticipate that?
Anticipate kneeling well in advance.
Right.
And then this comment came in from Renee. Renee said, "Thank you, VP Pence, for walking out of the game. I have respect for you. Too bad the kneelers don't." So this issue, just on the CBN News Facebook page, is just indicative of the divide that we're seeing right now in the nation.
You know, I think a big question is, are there winners and losers here? And who are they, if so?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I know winners and losers get caught up in the terms. Look, Trump won, guys. I mean, when I say Trump won, I know it's a little dicey when you talk about winners and losers, but Trump took on the NFL. He put his neck out on the line, and Goodell is, in essence, as Ben said just now, I mean, Goodell is backing what Trump said all along. So let's not, if we can somehow get away from what the players necessarily are standing for, because to me, it's a separate issue. But the bottom line, and maybe it is a separate issue and it isn't, but I think Trump, the fact that he stuck his neck out on the line, actually wins the day here. What do you think? I don't know.
I think when you look at the facts, yeah, whether you like it or not, I think Trump, this is a victory for him. But of course, a lot of people in our country don't feel that way.
I think you have a definite point there, David. President Trump made a statement, and that statement picked up momentum, and as a result, this is what we see. If you have to talk about winners, you have to talk about losers, and ultimately, who we see losing in this situation are those NFL players who took a stand. Or didn't take a stand, who kneeled. They kneeled because, for whatever reason, we can't judge it, but some would say they were kneeling to send a message about injustice. I think the question that we are going to see out of this is, if you are that passionate about it, how will you continue this? Are you going to continue it by taking the fines, taking the suspensions because you believe in it that much? Or are you going to continue it by finding another venue, by finding another avenue to get this message across? And I think that's interesting. We had this conversation before that a lot of the anger was about the venue, right? The place and the time of the protest. I was reading a tweet from Bernice King, who is the daughter of Martin Luther King. And basically she said, the exact quote was, "People didn't approve of the way my father protested." So this question of when is the right time. So it'll be very interesting to see when they choose, how they choose to go on. Are they going to do it right there and continue to take the fine and stand for what they say they believe in? Or are they going to abandon this?
Well, and also, what will the owners do? Because, you know, it's one thing to fine a guy $20,000. That's a penny to these guys. It's another thing to suspend him for a game, for 2 games, especially coming down the stretch of a season. Then you're into a whole uncharted territory here. So we'll see.
Yeah, this is the NFL is a private. You know, this is a private industry, and so the ball is really in the court of the owners of these teams.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But I will say this as it relates to Trump. My concern, I mean, if we can just kind of go there, if you will, my concern is that I think you should stand for the national anthem. I don't think there's any question about it. But then if you say you think you should stand for the national anthem, a lot of people think you're with Trump. And if they think you're with Trump, then all of a sudden Charlottesville comes into the picture, and a lot of some of the racist comments come in. And so now all of a sudden you feel like you're a bit lumped in with that ilk, if you will. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. Some people may be, but not everybody, for sure. And so I think this is kind of like there's a bit of a scarlet letter to a degree when you're with Trump. So
the scarlet hat.
Oh, much better. The Scarlet Beret.
Yes, exactly.
If
Yeah.
you're standing with him in France.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
You know, a lot of people saying that this really, it all comes down to money. It really comes down to money, and money speaks.
Right. Yeah. I think that was money talks, right? So we had that discussion as well. I don't know Roger Goodell. Do you know Roger Goodell? If I were friends with Roger Goodell, it would be a different situation. I'm not friends with Roger Goodell, but I think the assumption is the ratings, the loss of advertising is what propelled the move. Because we didn't hear this 2 weeks ago. So money talks.
Money talks, but can I just say real quick that I think that it goes even beyond the money, because Goodell is responding to, let's face it, ratings are down. They are down. And some of these advertisers locally have pulled out. My guess is these national advertisers were going to be next. He was catching a lot of flack for all of this. And so why is he catching a lot of flack? Because we the people, if you will, it's democracy in action. Now, it's not we all the people. I get that. But it is we the people in the sense of our the democracy that's in this country. And when the people speak and the ratings go down and they decide to burn NFL jerseys and they decide to do all of this, you know what? People are going to pay attention, and that's the only way you're going to affect change. And we've seen this throughout the course of American history, through the course of world history, if you will. So.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people, they say, you know, the president is out there tweeting. They just wish he would extend somewhat of an olive branch to the other side, to back down a little bit, because he did. He won this.
Right.
But if he could extend an olive branch to the other side.
Yeah, good luck.
I've read that. I've seen quite a bit of that. I've seen quite a bit of people saying, what would have happened had Vice President Pence went down to that locker room at halftime and said, let's talk. And then that gets out.
That would have been good.
And what does that change the narrative of this country and this discussion? I think that's kind of what people are demanding. If we're going to see 30-plus tweets on the NFL, are we going to see 30-plus tweets on unity and on healing the very divided nation?
Well, that's a great point, because that goes to street cred. I mean, to me. I mean, at that point, you know, look, you want to go there with the national anthem and you want to talk about how racial injustice is important to you. Okay, well, you can say it, but if you're not tweeting about it in Trump's case, or you're not putting some proof behind the pudding in that, then you've got a street cred problem. And I think that's a great point. And but that's on the administration to step up in this area. It's an opportunity, really, for them. I mean, but they got to do it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
All right. Well, I think we're going to take a little break here. But when we come back, the best part of the show, the Brody File takeaway.
Oh, I thought we were eating.
Oh, well, yeah, that would be ideal. But
do we get food?
We'll be right back.
I want it to be God. I want it to be Christ.
Hey there. Make sure you check out my new uplifting Christian entertainment show, Studio 5.
All right, well, it is the best part of the show. I know a lot of you wait for it, of course.
Oh, come on.
What else? The Brody File takeaway.
Are people waiting for this?
I think so. I don't know. Weigh in, you guys. What do you think? Here's a question.
Yeah.
What kind of Brody File takeaways would you like to see in the future? I know you have your topic for today.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. All right,
Weigh
time for Brody File takeaway, and this is my favorite part, where I turn from 5 over to 6.
There you go.
Love that. Bob Corker, have you heard about him? Yeah, U.S. Senator, Tennessee, Gonzo. He's going to be leaving the Senate. Gonzo? I said Gonzo. Bedtime for Gonzo. Anyhow, so he's leaving, but of course, Twitter and Trump and Corker, and they got into a little tiff. And here's the tweet. Let's put it up here on the screen, and I'll actually read it. It says, quote, this is what Corker said, "It's a shame the White House has become an adult daycare center." Somebody obviously missed their shift this morning. You know, I'm sorry, but let's face it. Sorry, Trump land, but that was funny. I mean, it just was. Someone missed their shift this morning. Look, he kind of represents establishment Washington. I mean, this is what Bob Corker is. He's part of the establishment Washington. And oh, by the way, ... That's exactly the reason why Donald Trump is president, because he ran against establishment Washington. And the adult daycare center is alive and well in Washington, whether or not he and all of the liberals out there want to admit it. But it was a pretty funny line, I have to say. You like that line.
Yeah, you know, I think when was it? He tweeted it out Saturday, I think.
I think it was Saturday.
I have to say, I did laugh out loud a little bit.
You LOL.
I don't know. What about you guys out there? Did you think it was funny?
I thought
offensive?
it was funny.
I was laughing.
Come on, be honest. It was a pretty good line. It was a pretty good line. Hey, speaking about some good lines, Jeff Sessions had some really good lines. I
Yes,
just
he
want to
did.
recap with that because, you know, we were watching in the Edit Bay the other day, and I thought it was interesting when he was talking about DACA, and you mentioned something that you noticed there was a key buzzword, if you will.
The buzzword, right. Well, the buzzword is wrestling, and it was interesting, I think, with this whole issue of DACA, there's the compassion side and then there's the law and order side, and that's what they're trying to wrestle with. They're trying to wrestle with what to do with all of these dreamers, these people who were brought here illegally as children. And so there's a lot of wiggle room, I think, in that word. They're still trying to figure it out. They don't know exactly what they're going to do, but that we'll hopefully be seeing some movement on that soon here.
You know, I remember you coming up to me after the interview because you were obviously in the room with me, and you said, and you mentioned that word, and we saw it in the Edit Bay as well, and we both kind of realized, like, okay, that means, as you say, wiggle room. That means room for negotiation.
Room for negotiation.
And to hear Sessions say it, who's this hardline immigration guy, I thought that was interesting. You'd maybe hear it from Trump, but not from Sessions. But he did.
Yeah, he hedged his comments.
Hey, the other thing I want to ask you about. So I'm off kind of preparing for the interview in the room, and tell me a little bit about you. Guess you ran into the security. Well, it was more than it was an FBI guy, right?
Yeah, this was okay. So Eric Rosales, our colleague, he was there. It was the two of us and Eric Rosales. So Eric and I were talking to one of his security details, one of Jeff Sessions' security details with the FBI, and he comes up to us and we just strike up a conversation, and he's talking about the difference between working for Jeff Sessions versus Loretta Lynch, who was the Attorney General under President Obama. And the difference is that everybody was so friendly toward Loretta Lynch, and it feels like, he said, there's a big target on Jeff Sessions. And you can definitely see that. You know, they're very much on guard. Also, and I don't think this is because of Jeff Sessions, but you know, every government building in Washington has security, but it was pretty remarkable how much security the Justice Department has.
Yeah, there were layers.
More than I've ever seen, probably.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, speaking about the Loretta Lynch situation, that's the deep state we hear so much about. You know, those are the Washington bureaucrats that have been around for a while, that aren't necessarily Democrats, some are, and not even Republican. It's just that they've been entrenched for so long. Right. And this is something that Sessions is obviously feeling, but same thing with Trump. So. And
I have to say, one more interesting thing about
this
FBI
keep
detail.
Going. Let me tell you, let me just relax a while.
A shameless plug. Can I do that?
Oh, absolutely.
He came into the room, and the first thing he says, he pulls out his phone, and he says, "You're with CBN News? I had to come and say hi to you guys because you're the only news outlet that I watch. You're the only news outlet that I trust." And he pulled out his phone, shows us the CBN News app, and it was, we were so flattered.
He has the app.
So flattered, yes.
That's a whole nother level. You got to get the app.
Taking it to a whole nother level. Check out the app.
Yeah.
CBN News.
It's free.
Anyway, David, I would be remiss to not ask you, what were the highlights in your mind of this interview?
Well, I think he realizes that the train is leaving the station, Jenna, culturally, and he believes that he has been put there for, here we go, such a time as this. And God's providence, we actually talked a little bit about this after the interview, but talking about God's providence and that Donald Trump won the election and that, you know, here he is as Attorney General and it's not Eric Holder. And the point is that he believes he has a responsibility to return this country, and that's the word, return this country to a Judeo-Christian principle framework. I know that scares a lot of folks. He said it in the interview. But I got to tell you, to me, that was the big takeaway. Because you can mention cake bakers, and you can mention DACA, and you can mention all these issues. But he's seen it from a constitutional perspective, somewhere this country was, somewhere he thinks this country needs to go. And I know that scares progressives, but that's kind of the name of the game right now in town.
Yeah, it is. With the president, with the attorney general.
I know.
All right.
So what do you got? Anything else there, Amber?
You know, just a lot of people enjoying the anecdotes about some of the behind-the-scenes things.
What were you behind the scenes?
Well,
maybe not too far.
But love for the show, too, with Yvonne saying, wish this was on for an hour. Well, thank you, Yvonne.
Oh,
can you guys handle an hour? We can handle an hour.
I think we can do it.
Now, in your contract, we get paid by the minute.
Right. That's my contract. Is that yours?
Yes. How much do you give? No, never mind. Never mind.
I missed that meeting.
So let's go for now.
Yeah.
And then other people asking just how they can keep up with the show. And, of course, you can follow David on Twitter at The Brody File and at Jenna Browder. Jenna Browder, at Amber C. Strong. So keep up with things that we have going on the show, upcoming guests, behind the scenes anecdotes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can always find that stuff on Twitter if you're missing your Faith Nation fix during the week.
Oh, I like that. Faith
I like
Nation
that.
fix.
Faith Nation fix. Say that 10 times fast.
No, thank you. Can I just say one thing real quick? Very important. We always talk about CBN News Facebook page. Go there 12:30 Eastern. But it's there all week, obviously. I mean, in other words,
Yeah.
just so you miss it, big deal. Go there at 5 in the afternoon while you're eating macaroni and cheese and watch it. I mean, I've done that.
I've done that.
You've eaten macaroni and cheese.
Yeah. And watch this show. Well, maybe not. But
That's called like this,
there's
patting
first
yourself.
there's a first for everything, right?
Okay, that's right. You have
All
one.
right. Well, I think, does that do it for us?
I think
Amber,
we're
anything
done.
else?
That's it for
We're
me.
getting
Okay.
we're getting the wrap.
We're getting
which
the
is
wrap.
not
Yeah.
a good sign.
All right. We're done. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us this week. And we will be back next week with more Movers and Shakers. We hope you'll join us. Bye.
Movers and shakers.